There it is. We are rolling with James True, my new favorite person to watch on YouTube. I am going to fangirl out a little bit here. I mean, I'm not the kind of person that like really gets into like, oh, I like this guy's so amazing. But I have been changing the way I speak. My verbiage has changed because of you when I'm working with my clients, when I'm talking to my friends, and I really think that that says a lot about how you think and how you operate and what you share. It's telling me that you're refining and simplifying things for people in a way that hasn't been done before for them. Does that make sense?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think this stuff's important, how we approach language and ourselves and everything. So I'm curious to know what you found that you've changed or what you've noticed maybe the most that you
I
feel
would
need.
say probably the thing that I've been sharing the most with people is how plainly you explain how some of us can't carry certain things. And I used to always say, I used to give the example from the book The Secret Hiding Place, where her father wouldn't let her carry the luggage because she couldn't carry it because she wasn't large enough. And she was saying, you know, this is the same as true for emotional things. And you use the word calories. And I think it really helps people more than carrying luggage. It's like you just don't have the energy, or you don't have the power, the torque, as you say. And it really is. That's just one. There's a lot of them. Also, just the idea that I got from your blueprints and mind control of the invisible wire, the barbed wire fence, the invisible barbed wire fence, and how we have all of these things that pop up and we don't even know why we're like backing off of them.
Yeah.
And so I think it helps to explain to people the prisons that they put themselves in, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are important too. Even the fact that we do keep ourselves in a cage is in fact a constructive act. And I think ultimately that's where we find even more calories, is even realizing why we downgrade our reality so much, why we actually purposely do things to limit our thinking. It's all about being efficient as we possibly can, and just managing our calories, which is exactly why I use that word. I appreciate you recognizing that. If you don't
Yeah.
have a quantitative word for energy, people will mistakenly think that energy is timeless or endless or fully abundant, and it's just not. We collect a lot of energy throughout the day, but we also have to spend that energy on what we deem important. So it really comes down to what is our budget, and how compassionate we are is firmly rooted in how many calories we have to spend. So
Yeah, I think that's so cool. And then too, like you actually have like you're like this I'm like speechless. So you have all of these different mediums that you operate through, and it's sometimes in one show. So there's this comedian that shows up, and then there's this like really silly person, and then there's this like crazy intense researcher, and so there's just so many things wrapped up into one, and it's never boring. I have even started a James True quotes that make me laugh, because those are my favorite ones.
mhm.
And even when you were talking about somebody running out of their 4-leaf clover power, I just, there's so many like that just make so much sense. I think that's what makes them funny, is because they are so true. And some people have the ability to find, 4-leaf clovers easily, and others don't. And I thought that was
Yeah.
fascinating. So thank you for all of the expansion that you have made in my head territory.
Of course, thank you for considering. Yeah, I'm just navigating the world as crazy as it is, like everyone. And I remember when I was little feeling like God had forsaken me because I've never found a 4-leaf clover. And I remember finding that there were people that found them so ubiquitously that they found it boring. And it really changed the way that I see how we see things.
Right.
Yeah, and all that stuff. So, every time you suffer a loss emotionally, I think if you start to really value calories in the way that I do, every emotional loss that I have is not felt as a devastation as much as a curious, hey, why is this resource being depleted in this one specific area. So it's not a sign where I would do more damage to myself. At least this is what I hope. It's a sign where I see an opportunity to stop losing calories and just to apply that. And so you want to be calm. You want to be in a state where you're not activated through fear, where you can digest what's actually happening to you. And ultimately, this is how I think we triumph, because we find more calories and that makes us more generous, and people just notice. They just notice that you're more generous than you used to be. And it's all about energy. It's all about these calories we talk about.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. I love it. It reminds me of like when I first started working with people, and I saw this incredible science festival, and they were talking about holographic physics and how in a hologram, you can only see it if light is going through the film.
Mm.
And it really is kind of like we each have our own holographic film, and the things that we put light towards absolutely start to come to life. And your four-leaf clover one is a perfect example of that. So the reason I wanted to have you back, well, first of all, I just love talking to you, and I'm so thankful that you give me your time. But I was listening to you and you were talking about how computer demons or daemons
Right.
are the same as actual demons in like a spiritual context.
Mhm.
And I was fascinated by some of the things you were saying. And so I would just like to hear your take on that. And if you could start with like, where did the computer demon idea come from in the first place? Do you know that?
I think it was a Linux thing. I think probably someone who knows a lot more about this is going to correct me, but I think it was a Linux term originally initially used to invoke a ghost process. The first time computers were born, they didn't necessarily have a mouse, of course. They were all black screen and like a DOS prompt. And one of those prompts you could have is an agent that's running around doing things. It's metaphysically called the cron. It's called a cron tab. It's this special chronos set in time where the processor literally comes to this one master file and says, is there anything I can do for you? And if there's anything listed in that file, that process has to run. And that file gave birth to Daemons, Daemon, which is this idea of a process that holds the intent of the user, but is not actually the user themselves. So I can command every hour on the hour, I can command a daemon to rise up out of nothing, go to the log file, and delete anything that's over 6 gigs every hour. Now we've just created a daemon that's basically cleaning your logs all the time. So this is it's not even extra creative. I think this is just the only term that really made sense as to how do we do this. So that ancient Greek word demon never meant anything nefarious. It literally just meant an animated spirit of any kind. Most of our early relationships with spirits were much more positive, much more enlightening. We certainly had some negative ones, but I think over time we agreed to conglomerate all spirits into a central Holy Ghost. We built a religion off of it. We have very strict rules about the Holy Ghost itself, very different rule set. Jesus will forgive you for everything. The Holy Ghost will not forgive you if you doubt that very spirit. So in my mind, although we can talk about God and religion a lot later, but even before we get there, in my mind, the collective spirit of all of our animism, of our animized spirit, is right now sort of centralized into this Holy Ghost. And we utilize the doors of religion to kind of control, put the reins on our demonic entities that are living inside of us, which really are just unowned urges, unknown processes that are running inside of you that you may not be consciously aware of. You could be consciously aware of, but they don't require your absolute attention to run in them, right? So it's a very nice, broad, general term that fits a lot of just spiritual holographic medicine. It's funny you brought up that word, but it's like I think demons are the key to holographic medicine. This is the instrumentation of the placebo effect, just the idea of cleansing the soul with washing of the face has legitimate benefits to it. Things like leprosy were probably diseases. We don't really quite understand even what that was, but probably diseases more based on our lack of conscious association with the cleanliness of our skin, with the quality of our life, things like that. So you could even see that even something as simple and trivial as washing of the face is actually a kind of demonology. It's a kind of spiritual warfare that we practice, a necromancy, very specific word here, that we actually practice to move our demons, either to cleanse them or to spiritually baptize them or to put more demons into effect, meaning that I really hope someone gets better because they're not feeling well, things like that. So all of our intentional placebo, just as we can say energy has calories, so too can we say all of our intentions are just guided intentional spirits or will that we've injected into the field holographically. And we think about them, we give them more life, we are haunted by them, we give them more life, everyone else is too. So this energy is tangible, it's there. We're just entering into an era where we're finally able to tap into it and have a conversation about it without freaking out.
Right. And so in a computer, can a demon go rogue?
Well, so I think that everything that we talk about going rogue is really just poor magicianship. Just,
Right.
your ability to not accurately emote your will into something. So we practice this all the time at work, in the workplace, or in traffic and things like that. So yeah, it just becomes easier for us to be able to say that something went rogue when really what it really means is we just don't want to own what actually happened, right?
Well, and that's basically a lot of what you find in the spiritual world as well. When you think of exorcisms and different things, there's people that, do things and they cannot explain it, or they do things and they call it a family curse.
Mhm.
How would you compare that kind of interpretation by a human of their own or someone else's demons to computers?
Right. So you have a process. Many of us, I'm addicted to, let's just say, coffee. I mean, I'm addicted to a lot of things, but like I was a little bit late because I wanted a cup of coffee. There is a satisfaction gradient that's existing in my field, in my reeve, that if it gets coffee every day, it feels appeased in some way. If it does not get coffee every day, it feels angry. This can either be a conscious urge I have a coffee headache, or I feel like I really need some coffee, or don't talk to me until I have my coffee. All those things, you can either be conscious that you're that way, or you can just not be aware that you're that way. Most of us, the reason why we don't see demons as much today, quite frankly, is because most of us have cleansed the easy demons out, and we're just left with like really big ones that are just a little bit trickier to see. So I'm suggesting that as we left the animized world, as we developed a stronger mental framework, the demons started to disappear simply because we saw more of them. We
Right.
saw our own bad behavior. We saw our own, the way we looked in the mirror, I think probably killed more demons than anything else. The ability to see yourself clearly in a very easy way, accessible way, gives you the ability to stalk your attention into your field. And when you monitor your own field, it's harder to possess something like that. So all the demons are basically just a separation of what you're conscious of versus what you were not conscious of before. So anything that you're not conscious of before that's emanating inside your skin, I would call a demon. And anything that you're aware of, you've basically tamed or exercised that demon, but really all you've done is integrated it in some way. Certainly you can dismiss things that don't serve you anymore. But even dismissing the urge is still sort of satisfying that demonic entity, again, the unknown entity, the spiritual agency that's running through you. When you start to look at what consciousness, or what agency, excuse me, is, like neural agency, you have all these systems that are competing for who's going to be in charge of your body. It's
Mhm.
never really like built in that there's going to be Zeus is going to be this electrical field. we're built in a certain way where probably the parabola of the skull kind of broadcasts all your nervous system into a central place, and you can sort of create a focal point, i.e. an id or an ego or a superego. We've formed all three. And that by having the three of those things, really it's just our Solomon's ring, our way of possessing all the demons that are in the earth and commanding them with a singular ring, with a singular command. And that command is always known through naming things. This, to me, this is interesting, that if you know the name of a demon, you're magically able to control it. And this is what I mean by, I think really it's just showing you the truth of that you associate with these things. Once you can name something, you have a firmer understanding of it. And so that demon becomes you. So ultimately, I think that I am a demon. I think you're a demon. I know it sounds weird, but ultimately our agency, our identity is simply a claimed demon. It's an urge that we have to survive. It's an urge that we know that we have to survive that comes up every time we run out of breath. This is a demon that is possessed by life itself. We
To
were
move
possessed
forward.
by right? It's an involuntary, our muscles involuntarily breathe. And I think that they involuntarily breathe because they are possessed by a demon that is lower than we are able to associate with. And this is a good thing. This is why I say my goal is not to eliminate all demons. My goal is to understand all the spiritual processes, the daemons that require you to just function in the world. Your pancreas, your heart, you see your heart's beating. You've got 4 different rhythms that are happening in your body right now that you really don't, you can sort of control your breathing rate, but you kind of have to stop everything else. You can sort of control your heart rate, but you got to kind of stop everything else, right? The flush of CSF into your brain, the cranial spinal fluid, sort of slow that down too, sort of. Like there's all these different cycles. Your pineal has got this cycle. So all of these, before we realized who we are, when we didn't have a Homo sapiens sapien, when we were just Homo sapien, so we weren't aware of our awareness. We were just aware. This is where cows are. This is where wolves are. They're aware, right? They're not necessarily aware of their awareness. Some of us might argue that they are, and I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm just trying to use the analogy. Technically, those spirits are demonized. They are living spirits that aren't necessarily actualized by someone who can steer them yet.
Right.
You and I are on the precipice of new skills that are quite frankly just too amazing for me to even comprehend. This awareness of our own awareness is truly the thing that gives us our superpower. And ultimately, this is the command of demons. That's why it just became obvious to me one day. I was just like, James, you just need to come up with a different word for demons. And, there's jinn and spirits. All of them lead to the same thing. It wasn't until computers that it was like, well, wait a minute. This is a computer term too.
Right.
To make sense as one. It's literally defined as one. So why not use what's there? And the answer is fear. The answer is, culturally, we don't want to have a conversation about that. But culturally, we don't want to heal ourselves either. Culturally,
a lot of people don't, or they're avoiding it. Yeah.
See, to me, that's why I think it's a clue.
Right.
Because if we don't want to talk about that thing, but we also live in a culture that kind of flaccidly talks about placebo as if it's like a limp thing. It's sort of like an accidental weird thing that's kind of a problem that sort of kind of doesn't work, but really it's the drug companies that work, things like that. This is just us having this inability to claim our demonic nature, or the fact that we are made up of all these different urges, these addictions, and many of them are good. It's absolutely necessary to remember who you are. You become addicted inside your phonological loop. Your mind comes right back and says, wait, what was I? Oh yeah, 8675309. This is the demon. It would not be there if you were not to consciously give it spirit. It would die unless it was a demon. So let's embrace this term. Let's look at the etymology of it. Let's go back to ancient Greece, realize it was never meant in a pejorative way, ever.
Wow.
Never. It was actually the only way it explained how rivers worked, how trees worked, how wind worked, right? It was a desperate attempt to just understand what is this reality that we're seeing. And we've run away from that because that kind of reality scares scares the piss out of us. So we end up abandoning those terms.
Yeah, what you see people do this and destroy relationships because of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the process of, chatting with somebody right now who's, disowning her daughter because her daughter is refusing to see certain things, and they're real. And the daughter, like you said, it's like she doesn't want to see it. I think it's something that is scarier to look at than it is to actually go to the other side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so how would you describe that? Like, you're talking to somebody who doesn't want to admit something happened or doesn't want to face the reality of something. How much better are they going to feel to face their demon?
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that it really does just come down to, you have 7 calories. This is going to cost you 12. So if you're dealing with someone who's having trouble facing something, I think the answer is more calories. How can you find them more calories? Here's the thing. They don't want more calories. There's a truth that we understand, that if we see something deeper, it's going to cost us for a long time. It's going to be expensive forever. You cannot unlook at something. It's very difficult. You have to spend just as much energy, and that's energy you don't have. So when you find someone that's having trouble facing something, I think the best thing to do is compassionate them completely, is to understand how perfect it is that they do not see this thing right now, which is very difficult to do, especially if they're wronging you or you feel that they're wronging you. The truth of them wronging you, though, is actually more related to your behavior than theirs. It's just a lot easier to live in a world where we can just assign blame like this, because we assume everyone has to have a certain amount of calories when we're around, and we get to call them cruel if they don't have those. So we have a very weird,
That's so
idea.
true. That's
Yeah.
so true.
Yeah, of what we call nice people could be people that are hoarding their calories and only giving it to you when you show up, and immediately removing that. Like, you just don't know these things yet. So I look at denial as a perfect function of someone's stability. And if I make someone see something that they don't want to see, like if I want someone to see the truth about the government or the medical industry or the vaccine or whatever it is that's on the, like, it really doesn't matter. I am entering into an avenue where I'm trying to cost them more calories than they're used to spending. And that has changed my outlook more than anything else. I don't even debate people anymore.
Right. Same.
Yeah, because I see someone that just has a certain quotient. They're doing the best they can with what they spend. And who the fuck am I to say that they have to see this one thing, right? Like, it's really not necessary. It's only necessary if I feel insane, if you do not justify what I see. Then it becomes, really, I'm the one that's spiritually attacking them. I'm trying to possess them, to get them to elicit their belief, to give it to me. And that's not
Because you
something.
want to witness, I guess.
Yeah, well, this is how we learn to hold our own beliefs, as we jack into other people's prana and we say, hey, will you believe this for me? Right? Do you think I'm fat? Do you think I'm funny? Do you think I'm a good writer? These are people that are accessing other people's fields to survive. And we live in a symbiotic society. I think this is why we're employed. Like, this is why we have jobs, is because not all of us can pull this kind of belief 24/7. So we've learned to tap into the colony. We've invented civilization, all these other crazy things to basically allow us to do that, So
True.
only a few people are really rising to that level. And typically those people are summarily shot and punished in some way. That's really what we are doing now. We have moments where people are allowed to be more sovereign or allowed to exercise certain kinds of miracle work, but they have to die really quick, or they have to suffer in some deep way in order to pull this kind of torque. See, I think all of us do this to Janis Joplin. It wasn't Janis doing that to her. It was the ability, the filament inside a man to believe that they could be that amazing. And a lot of us are just rejecting that, because so much of us are possessed by each other. And I only know that because of the fascism that exercises itself when we go around insisting that there's a singular answer, or that everyone has to agree, or that if you don't vote this color, or if you do vote this color, bad things are going to happen. To me, this is just the weakness, the handicap nature of belief where it is right now. And you're just watching the after effects of everyone being paralyzed kind of in the same way.
So true. COVID's a good example of
Yeah.
that. And I love what you said about naming them, because that is how I help people get more calories.
Yeah.
Is, if you have somebody and they have anger issues, but you name that aspect of them, they become detached enough to be able to see it. And I think that's really, really powerful. The thing that you kind of had me at, so I would love to hear more about it, was that you said that demons tell the truth.
Yeah.
And I think of them as being deceitful. And so I would love to hear your explanation around that.
So if I think about how a demon is able to transmit from one person's face to another, from across the bar, from a crowded restaurant, from an airport, from someone's finger when you're driving behind them in traffic and you cut them off, they're able to possess and curse you from a distance. And I just think about the wireless trajectory of how this energy would transmit itself. And so in my mind, it's very self-evident that demons do not have a complex psyche where they can run multiple timelines, which would be necessary in order to lie. The definition of lying is that I have one timeline, but I'm giving you another timeline on purpose, hoping to deceive you from the first timeline. This is a very complex mental exercise that requires a lot of hard drive space. If you think about it, you're going to have to remember one timeline the entire time while you know someone and create another one the entire time too. When I just look at the logic of all that, I think you're going to have to be in a body to do that. Something, a somatic body that has cells that can store, can write things in salt, versus an intent. If I spit at you with my eyes, right? I'm trying to spit at you with my eyes right now.
That
It's like
feels so rude.
I'm trying to do that to you. I don't get to say, hey, if A, then B, then C, or if so and so turn, I can maybe curve my curse. I can pretend like it's happy, but then it really comes in and and insults you later. But I can't send a curse to you. Give it autonomy, right? Make it make decisions based on what you're doing, then take it away. This is just how I see it. To me, it
Well,
looks
no, it's brilliant. I had never thought of it being timelines
yeah,
for, and it pretty much is true. If you look at anything that goes to court, they always want proof of when something happened.
of course.
Um,
And that's all demonology. Yes, because your intent, your consequences, your consent, all those things are demonic agreements that you make. That's why I think one of our biggest issues is not really accepting things we don't want to swallow. It's just learning to realize that everything is perfect, and everything that you accept, there's going to be calories for it. It's going to happen. It's just our fear that we have about a world that we thought or we hoped would be impossible being possible. I think that's really what throws us off. And if I can flip you off and be innocent, I'm going to save more calories. I think this is ultimately what's hidden demons the most. Our intent has been hidden the most because if we can just fling our energy at people and not have to stay owned to it, if we can just become unconscious of it, we can just vent all day long and not worry about it. This is really what we've done. I think the birth of religion is this arising of a new field called guilt and shame, and that guilt and shame came from our practice demonology, getting so good at finding a scapegoat, finding a pharmacos, finding a witch, finding a warlock, finding a pedophile, finding an Epstein, that all through our lives, we've looked for these kind of like dumpster fires that we can offload our own demonology into, which is why I think it takes so long for it to come back online. Everyone who wants to be aware of their own demons is instantly losing calories the second they start doing that. It's just now you're carrying all your weight. Now you're claiming ownership of your whole yard, everything that happens. You are now technically losing compared to the person that isn't. So it creates this system where it helps to kind of keep demonizing. A lot of people find that it's a lot easier. They kind of stay in a little eddy or a safety pocket there where they can do it, versus when you're ready to claim more, people are just going to dump more on you. It's not necessarily going to be better. That's why so few of us wake up, and we only wake up because we just have to. It's rarely because we deep down
That
want
was
to.
for me. Absolutely had to.
Yeah, me too. I was going nuts. I could not function without seeing the truth of at least something. I don't even think that I see the whole truth. I'm just saying that I needed to be able to swallow some things that I wasn't ready to swallow. And the moment I did, at first it was really hard. But then after a while, I started collecting more calories because things didn't fear me as much because I had already faced them, was already able to name them. And then you're really starting to own that power, because all of your shame is just compassion.
Right.
It's just your heart going, hey, I could be a better person. This is a powerful force, right? And this is a demon too. This is the demon of your ego, something that we shame too. We shame it horribly. This, I think, is ultimately giving us the best excuse to act like shit. We can treat anyone like dirt in this world as long as we keep shaming the ego, as long as we keep insisting that there's this spirit of us, this placebic spirit of us in the neocortex that we don't want, that we hate, that doesn't need pride, that doesn't need to live in karma, that is purposely here to be killed at all times. It's giving us the excuse to kind of have a suicide bomber, a demonic suicide bomber that gets to go out and be as drunk as they want, as long as you're not consensually aware of it, as long as you're not, as long as you can say, I didn't know, then you're innocent. This shows you kind of a childish place where we're at as humans right now, where we're living in that kind of responsibility.
So childish.
Yeah. And so we have laws that say, well, you're guilty, but only if we can absolutely prove it and we can get 12 people to agree. It's never about, hey, are you guilty? Like we don't have that society. I think we're supposed to. I think we will. But it's going to take a lot more of the demonology, the work there, because ultimately, I don't think it would feel good to be guilty. Ultimately, when we have owned all of our holographic medicine, it will simply not feel good. And we exercise this all the time with our loved ones. We confess things all the time. All it does is cost us more calories. So why do we do it? Because it helps us in somehow.
Yep.
And I think ultimately it helps us with more calories. It's just that we're spending them up front to get to that next place, to afford that jump to the next level.
Amen. So when you think about, young girls becoming witches so that they can control things and actively trying to summon certain types of demons that they've been taught exist, where do you put that in the James True landscape?
So I think our imagination is the crucible of our demonology. And again, I think that this is just spiritual intent. So you're practicing demonology, whether you can help it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've living in a world where your emotional weather is so intense that you feel possessed, it would be quite natural for the village to feel that possession too, to just watch that kind of thing exercise itself. See, in my mind, when I look at Christianity rose as a response to guilt, the feeling of guilt finally came online. It's always there, but it was so many other things that were so much more important than guilt. It's like, who cares? It's like, I don't want it to burn when I pee, or I want to laugh like that. Like, it took a while until guilt could be something that we could work on. And once we started to work on that guilt, we really turned into a different species. We really did find this harmony. And until you have that, you're going to see a culture like Rome, where people are just wandering around in weird, sometimes violent cults, because emotionally they cannot freaking handle themselves. They enter into a different state. Bacchanalia, the famous drinking festival in Rome, was a horrible festival of just a lot of sexual abuse, rape, assault, robberies, fire, arson, all that stuff. And you're looking at a human that had so much energetic animistic spirit and they could only own like 5% of it. So you have this ritual every month where the 95% of that creature is just allowed to be feral again. It's just allowed to remind itself of why it needs to be civilized.
Yeah.
You have these monthly rituals that sort of bring that in. In
Right.
my mind, this is us exercising a lung or a muscle to try and grow, to try and become moral. And we're using that by exercising our immorality and noticing how it doesn't serve us the more we progress. And it truly doesn't. There's a stable state in your parasympathetic system. There's sympathetic, now your body's in fear, then there's parasympathetic. You're digesting, your saliva's on, things like that. This parasympathetic state, I think it's impossible to not feel guilt, to not feel shame, because you are home now. And when you're home now, you're just going to notice the static on the line. The static isn't really there to torture you. This is why I think there's really not, you can't really say that only good guys have this. That static is there to inform a bad guy as much as it's to inform a good guy. The shame that you feel is going to serve you if you're evil as much as it's going to serve you if you're good. So in my mind, this is just the human body giving juice to itself, causing the limbic brain to think certain thoughts that are quite unavoidable. Yes, you can disassociate. But when you disassociate, you become blind to the world. You lose the ability to read intention, to read subtlety. Sure, you can still kill people, but ultimately, I don't think you're going to survive in that because you're missing so much feedback, so much sonar in your system because you've decided to try and eliminate guilt. Really, you're just eliminating a sixth sense, an emotional kind of hearing that everyone has.
That's so good. So, I love that you send me back to Rome and talk about, the debauchery that was happening and how people would have guilt and shame over it. And you bring us up into like contemporary time and you say, okay, so now we have this guilt and shame, which is actually like you're saying, it's good for us. It's made us not go out and rape and pillage and steal and do all of those things for the most part.
Right, right.
Obviously, there's still people doing that. But then you look at something like corporate America or these other really, I think, kind of dark, not human loving things that have been created by us that are the systems that keep people in order to some event. So what do you think will come next? Like after guilt and shame, we've gotten to this level. We used to not have guilt and shame over it, but then we realized, that didn't make her feel good or that didn't make them feel good. So then now you have that. So what's the next thing that people will start kind of admitting, like this isn't good for other people? Like what's the next thing, do you think? Or do you even think about that?
I do. Oh, I think all the way. In my mind, there is a paste called, it's a fascism. It's majoritarianism. Everyone is insisting that there's one answer and everyone has to have it. I think that's the next thing that'll fall. It's already happening now. That's falling. It's been falling thanks to fashion. So for a long time, people have been able to develop their own opinions. That used to not be the case. This is kind of a new thing. A new thing we're working on here.
Because we take these things for granted, but when you put it the way you do, it's almost like I can see the evolution of man as if it were a Cro-Magnon, like
Yeah, it makes sense to me because we even when you. So there's this great book called Born to Run. It has nothing to do with this, but I swear if you read that book, you'll be like, holy shit, James is right. Because it talks about the difference between this Neanderthal human and this modern human and the development of the Achilles tendon. And believe it or not, the back of the skull, the lobes, the hindbrain emerging as a balance. But what the book doesn't realize is that the balance in back caused the frontal lobe to increase too.
Oh.
And this gave us the ability to fantasize. And the moment we develop the ability to fantasize, we're able to abandon the old reptilian immune system and start to have a immune system that we can control through fear or through confidence. This saves us so many calories. It's still coming online. A lot of us are suffering from autoimmune issues because we're too afraid of the temporariness of this, which is quite understandable. So I think that our First, we'll drop the fascism of cosmology. I'm not trying to sound fancy, but it's like the birth that people have different cosmologies is a new idea. But in my mind, it's just the plasma bubble of their placebo that's just showing itself more, and other people just kind of have to get it. So they call them, you're a Seventh-day Adventist, or you're a, you're a whatever, right? And so this is just the birth of us noticing that certain people have different engines, different belief engines that run. Once this becomes more acceptable, I think the fascism will eventually fall.
Mm-hmm.
This is that crude adherence to, I mean, both sides are fascists. Okay. So forgive me. I'm just going to
Right. No, I agree. I love your trauma army concept.
Yeah. So it's like one side is going to be really orthodoxy fascist. We have to, everyone, you got to be a boy, you got to be a girl, you got to be this, you got to do this, you got to work here, you got to do this. And that's one kind. Another kind is you can't be what was there. You can't do what used to do. Right. In between, you have this idea where everyone gets to fucking decide. Like people just get to decide their own cosmology. And the people that are threatened by that on both sides really are just showing you that they lack the continuity in their own cosmology to handle being in the room with someone that does not agree with them.
Yeah.
This is what prejudice is. This is what racism is. All these things are a psychic immunity, not immunity. The psychic weakness that we have that ensures that if everyone would just fucking agree, I don't have to fully believe anything. I can be held up and propped up by everyone else. So in answer to your question, I think this paste of fascism is quickly melting. That outer bubble is breaking. That placenta breaks, it means each person is now their own bubble. It's inside their head now. They're living inside their own cosmology. Once that happens, shame turns positive because we start to feel congruence, the opposite of shame. We start to feel, well, I'm in harmony with these people. I'm in harmony in this thing. And then we switch, we actually unpetrify. Right now, your psyche thinks, I'm not trying to say you, Carmen, but right now, a lot of psyches consider themselves nouns. And I think what comes next is this verb. We slip into flow state. We find our bliss. If you think about the fact that bliss is associated with flow state and you equate that with what we deserve, I just answered the question for you. That ultimately we are using shame to build the deservance necessary to live in bliss all the time. That in order for you to feel bliss all the time, you're going to have to feel that all of your ducks are in rows, that all of your chores are done. And this is just excuses that we use to jack into deserving to feel good. So we feel that we earn things. If we do enough penance, this is how we invented religion, Carmen. If I beat myself enough, or if I say enough Hail Marys, I can now let go of the guilt. Because, preacher, I don't have the ability to let go of the guilt. I don't know how. I'm just learning how to do this. And the church is like, I don't fucking know how either, but why don't we try this? Say this and do this and cross this and do this and really mean it. And then tell me how that works. So you're looking for a punishment because you're looking for mastery over these emotions. So we're being shown how to master them, but we're still using them. So I think ultimately, once these shade, we'll gain a lot more calories. Once we stop being nouns, once we really enter into this action state where we're just, who I am is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. We're so far from this. We are so far from this place. We were as children. We played in that, but who I am is what I'm doing. Once that comes online, I think we'll find an abundance of energy that, quite frankly, is hard to match in any other way. But this is not a world of success in the way that we see it now. Right. This is much more of a world of, it's a big festival. And the fact that I even have a grilled cheese sandwich and I'm here and it's raining and is enough. What we settle for, bad analogy, but what we settle for is less, because our satisfaction is so much closer now because we've entered into this flow state, this kind of verb state, that we have. It's more passionate. So we don't require so many nuts that we've stored over the noun winter to convince ourselves that we're going to be okay.
So congruence and peace would be kind of where we would find ourselves, because as you said, it would there be any other refining? Because to me, that's like what is just coming out. Like you can
Mhm.
stop chiseling away at the David and he's perfect now.
Yeah. So I think what'll come next, we will be having a hard time recognizing, but one example is I think you'll see like duels come back. I think you'll see more Evil Knievels
Yeah.
jumping over the Grand Canyon. You'll
Right.
see people taking more chances because the sanctity of life is no longer placed on survival. The sanctity of life is placed on experience.
Mhm.
And if you look at the Red Bull Corporation, like that's a living embodiment of that demon. This is why I talk about corporations all the time. That is the demon itself expressed through the ethos of this symbol of Red Bull, of just do it, like before with Nike, right? So you're the daredevils that we're seeing today. It's not really necessarily going to be about risking your life, but it is going to be about leveraging your life in order to find more flow state. These are slightly different things. See, the first is doing it because I'll get props from the nouns for living like a verb, right? The second is more about, hey, I want to play with that kid because he plays four squares better than any other kid out here because look how immersed he is, right?
Right.
It's not that he's better at four squares. It's not that he's the victor of four squares. It's that he is having so much fucking fun that you want to play with him. So it changes, and we end up with what would look like a more violent, I think will probably look like a little bit more violent culture, but there's more consent now. And when you have more consent, I think the violence just increases the same way that two sheep have consent and they're ramming their fucking heads together,
Right.
at 50 miles
Right.
an hour consensually. If they weren't doing it consensually, I would argue that one of those sheep would probably die.
Yeah.
That placebo would crack, it would break because there was no consent there. This is the important part that I think we don't fully understand, that this placebo bubble that I'm talking about, it permeates everything about you. So how you react to injury, even if you call something an injury, how we relate to things like this
Yeah.
is going to be more of a determining factor, I think, than anything else, which is why this demonology and the calories are so important.
Dang, that's so interesting. And it's interesting to me because I know that there's this thing called dopamine, and it is the molecule of more. And I could see, you see it with YouTube channels and TikToks, or these influencers die because they are on the edge of a precipice and they're trying to get that one shot, and that is more dangerous. But also, like, do you think it will still be or not placebo run? Yes, but dopamine will have a big play in it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I haven't put a lot of thought in this about what would be the biological evolutions of this system, except for pleomorphism. It sounds crazy, but it would seem like if we got good enough at this, we could grow things on our bodies. It's just stem cells. I'm not selling you anything that isn't already there. I'm not convincing you of an idea that isn't already there. The thing that I'm suggesting is that we don't have is autonomy over our own bodies like we've never known before. We know this, but we have to lie to ourselves. We have to go to the store and buy Robitussin in order to heal ourselves now because we're not really quite ready for that kind of responsibility. It sounds easy, but it's not, because the moment that your psyche is feeling responsible for healing yourselves is the moment that every dull moment or every shitty moment of your life, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, why am I doing this to myself? And that's too expensive, Carmen. Most people cannot do that. So they need to remove themselves from that. It's no different than trying to convince a pickpocket that they're hurting themselves, or trying to someone who's overeating, or someone who has an alcohol problem, that they're hurting themselves. That's the point. That's the point. That's why they're doing it. So of course they're not going to be able to fix it that way. The other way would be to give them more calories to where they notice that the deficiency wasn't there anymore and they could just follow their bliss. See, I think ultimately it really does come down to bliss. Ultimately, the fact that you were addicted to something that makes you quote, quote, happy is correct. That is correct. You are trying to save calories. You found an inefficient way, or sadly, even worse, an efficient way to do that. And it's so efficient that you can't imagine restructuring your engine into anything else. And most of this is cosmology based, which is why it's so crucial that you understand, or at least I think you should understand, that demons have a very simplex kind of timeline. This is why when you summon a demon, they have to show up. This is why when you say, "Are there any demons in the room?" They have all this is written down. It's like they have to come out and say themselves. If you ask them their name, they have to tell you their name. That's because this is simple will. It's the animism of will itself expressed in furniture. If I pick up something and I insert my will into it, we do this all the time. When we write, when we throw a rock, when we get in our car, our will is to move this matter into a certain place. So why would demons not work the same? It does work the same. Not only does it work the same, but we literally see that because the art of grooming, the art of food preparation, the art of exercise, the art of everything that we do is practicing some sort of demonology on ourselves. We're either possessing ourselves or we're baptizing ourselves every day. This is how we decide who we are. We're literally dressed in the animized spirit of other things, and that we need furniture for that animized spirit to live in. So we invent clothing, we invent makeup, we invent fashion, we invent music, we invent furniture. All these are animized furniture that's holding the demons that define who I am, that are hoping to convince you that I'm that way too. And if you agree, then you're sort of entering my church, you're giving me reinforcements, and I'm able to survive in my dream state longer because you believe in me.
Ooh, that's like narcissism. That it's all like built up, and people keep giving them the calories, so to speak.
Yes. In fact, I have a different take on narcissism because I think narcissism is asphyxiation. I think the narcissist is not someone that has too much ego. It's someone that doesn't have enough. Because they don't have enough, they're acting like a choking victim at a restaurant. A choking victim's not going to be polite.
Right.
And what's even worse is we live in a society that thinks if someone's choking and they start acting up, that you need to call them names, that you need to treat them like shit and say, "How dare you fucking act up?" And really, they're just desperate. They don't know what else to do. They have no other reaction but to destroy themselves, their own reputation, to try and get oxygen. If we could compassionate that, if you can see the narcissist doing that and show up for them, you're not actually powering the narcissist up. First of all, you are, but what you're really doing is you're powering yourself up, because you're telling the rest of the universe that I recognize asphyxiation, which means the universe has no choice but to recognize yours. When the world recognizes that you're a good person, you're just a fish that's been thrown up on the dock, you need to be put back in the water, the universe is going to take care of you because you've seen that in something else. You don't really have a choice. You're aware of this now. Now the universe is aware of that in you. Everything's being bounced back like that. So even narcissists, in my opinion, are showing us the light. They're showing us exactly how to get there, because
100%.
it's the opportunity to compassionate something that society is telling you, do not ever compassionate this. And you get to be the first one. You get to be the one that says, I'm going to compassionate this. The same way you get to be a person that says, I'm going to compassionate demons. I'm going to look into it, because demons are more honest than everyone around you. They are. Hey, demon of alcohol, do you want another drink? Yes. If I go out to a bar, are you going to order a drink? Yes.
It's very consistent.
What if I don't take you to a bar? I'm going to get mad. There's no fooling there. Here's my urge. Here's what I want to do. Here's how we're going to do it. Let's go. Right. It's actually one of the easier things to deal with, because it's inanimate you. It's you, but it doesn't have the cleverness of you driving behind it. So it's just vectored will. I don't mean to sound fancy, but that's really what it is. When you shoot an arrow from a bow, you're vectorizing your will. Your will is to, I want to shoot that guy over there, right? And so you're sending your demon out into a direction, but once it leaves your bow, you can't change it. You can't say, hey, stop, or turn left, or turn around, or lie to the guy. You can't do that. It's already been loosed, right? So really, it's just like a gesture. It's like flipping somebody off. There's really no control once it leaves. You can say sorry. It really doesn't change anything. Like, it still happened, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I lost your face.
Yeah, you did. You can still hear me though, right?
Yeah.
I think it's my internet.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah. If it goes off again, though, it's probably the internet. I've been having some internet issues that.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. And just let me know when you're wanting to get cut loose. I won't keep you too long. And so when you first came out of your own shame and guilt awakening, did you find yourself doing like a habit demon? Like, so I do this like with Twitter. Like, I already know that there's no reason to engage in certain things. I already know. And then I will have like this auto reaction where
Yeah.
I auto propagate in a feeling and it's gotten better, but I'm able to let go more and more, if that makes sense. Is that something you experienced as well?
Yeah. And I think that this is where most of the growth happens. Find what you're ashamed of in your own behavior, and then release the shame. You can still be disappointed in yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but find that, okay, I can't keep cookies in the house. There's just an example. It's like I can't do it. I mean, there can be cookies in the world, but I cannot buy the cookies, put them in my house, and then expect them to stay there. I'm too possessed by that.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say I'm weak-willed. I can say I'm a piece of blah. I can call myself names. I can say I suck. I can beat myself up enough and then earn the permission to have a cookie because I treated myself like shit all day. This is mostly what we do. This is mostly how we handle these kind of demons. Another way is to look at the principles of addiction themselves. This is tricky because I'm sort of like devil times 1,000 here, because I'm telling you that I think the key to overcoming addiction is to learn to enjoy it correctly, to to find a moment where you can have that, but you can't have that with guilt too, because you're not actually getting what it is that you need. In my mind, I've discovered that I was told by others that I only need 7 energy calories a day, and I need about 68. So if I'm getting 7, I'm going to invent drama in my life that is going to limbically give me more alive calories, something that is limbically powerful. If it's something really good like a cookie or a cup of coffee, or the shame because I wanted something, or the feeling of anger I get because I'm denying myself of something, all of those are satisfying the limbic appetite to feel alive. I don't think a lot of us understand this, Carmen. I think a lot of us think that we can just meditate and go to bed and you'll be sane. I don't think that's possible. I think it's probably the most dangerous things you could do. I'm not even knocking meditation, but I'm saying that I think meditation is something that you do that you have to recover from, because ultimately you have a brain that is dying if it's not being fed. The experiences in your brain are probably the most crucial part of your anatomy. They're desperate little star clusters. I say desperate because they're very fragile. If you don't keep firing those, they're going to disappear. Some of those are really important to you. Some of those are more important than anything else. And others are based off others. And if we do not live a full life, our brain starts to deteriorate. It starts to turn negative. It starts to find that the experiences that make us feel alive are too expensive to afford every day. And so we drop into entropy. We enter into a depressive state. And I'm just telling you about 9 to 5 white collar workers. Like I just described to you basically the entire population. It's okay though. We've come a long way. We're still coming a long way. I don't think this is a farm or a prison plant. I think this is an amazing blooming of consciousness. And this is what it looks like. There's going to be a dormant period. Many flowers are not going to open. And those flowers that are not going to open are going to convince you that the worst thing you could possibly do is open, right? So most of the addictions you have probably are your animal spirit trying to save your life, like desperately trying to save your life because you're not giving it enough presence. This is why being a noun is so much more expensive than being a verb. It's so much more expensive than that. But you got to start first. It's the Maslow's pyramid or Maslow, whichever pyramid that is. I think it's Maslow's, where you have to have food, clothing, shelter first. So it makes sense. In other words, it's not a failure. It's that, look, until you can't juggle until you can just learn how to hold a ball. Do that first. Then we'll work on this next thing. Don't run yet. Just learn how to walk. And most of us are living in that culture. I think if you're not if you're not fully actualized yet, you're in the majority. And that fully actualized spirit, there's no betterment if you are fully actualized first. It could be the worst thing you could do is come online before anyone else.
Well, you could be very lonely there.
Yes, and your brain will atrophy. It's not just loneliness; you will actually suffer, right? You'll
So
suffer.
how is that? Because to me, you're like more tolerant, you're more present, you're more in the now. So how does that atrophy the spirit or the brain?
If you have a certain appetite for justice and you grow up in a family that has no justice, you will be asphyxiating for that all the time. If you lose that, or if it becomes something that you cannot digest regularly because it only comes every blue moon, so when you get it, you somehow fuck it up somehow, or it gets taken away from you, or you recreate the drama that gets taken away from you. This is doing is eating your spirit, deteriorating these things. Your identity becomes the fetish for the thing that you did not have. That your identity becomes that. You congeal into the broken parts of who you are and you call it the self. Why? Because that's what we do before we are fully actualized. We define ourselves by our flaws.
Right.
We're living in that. This is how we remind ourselves to work on that and work on that, shorty. So we use these things to shame ourselves, which really is just a form of growth. Luckily, we have friends that tell us when we're being shameful or when they think we're being shameful. It sounds horrible, but really it's kind of the perfect thing because it's the ability to see ourselves before we have the calories to see ourselves. So peer pressure becomes absolutely important in this crucial phase. Eventually, you'll grow out of peer pressure. Eventually, self-pressure. It's not that peer pressure went away. It's that self-pressure is so much louder that you rarely hear peer pressure. Instead, you're just looking at individuals. You're no longer really tapped into the group mind so much. It just doesn't carry the same weight. Twitter is the opposite of that. Sites like that are the opposite of that. And when we go into those things and we lose our cool and we interact with those things, I don't think it's because we lost our cool. I think we saw opportunities to keep our brain alive. Having something explosive, either someone mad at us or someone else mad or someone believing something, it doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. Does it dilate? Because you really have to keep your mind dilated if you want to keep these pores open.
Okay, that makes sense. That's fair. So tell me about this. Let's say because this is true, there's a group of millions of Christians that go to these churches, and these churches are going through insane growth also. And people are starting to see that the people are really, for all intents and purposes, creating these incredible dynasties for their families, not for the good of others. And they're doing it on the backs of a lot of widows and elderly and innocent people who really have good intentions towards it. Where are those people on that scale? Like, how do they still see that there's something going on? They can see all of the headlines of all of these pastors coming out, and yet there's people just still flocking to their churches.
Yeah, I think this is ultimately the elite became the elite because they just looked around and noticed. Are you still there? Okay, yes. I had something quit on me that was weird. Ultimately, the elite. I mean, I don't mind just saying the elite are evil. We have to kill them all, blah blah blah. But ultimately, we gave all this power to the elite because we didn't want it. Ultimately, we needed someone like Rockefeller who would sell us oil, petroleum, and call it medicine because we didn't want our own placebo to do this thing. Ultimately, we need the elite to show us how much higher we could be if we just own ourselves. So the fact that we hate things, I think, is much more of a sign of these are our teachers than we're willing to admit. We tend to think that the things we hate are the things that have nothing for us. But ultimately, we hate them precisely because there's a lesson there for us. So when I see a mega church, or a mega pastor, I do two things. First of all, I don't even get to the pastor because I don't think that it's accurate to look at a human and say that they were due. I think this is an adult. And this is an adult because I honor them, because I have sovereignty for them. I'm going to say that they did this fully out of volition. Certainly, there's times when someone could be robbed at gunpoint and things like that, but that's not happening in this church. It's not. These churches
Right.
being
Their
run
people are willingly doing it.
yeah, people are willingly giving away their own power because people do willingly do not know what to do with it. This is okay. This is not a flaw. This is seriously showing you just how powerful we are and how long it takes to convince us to come online. And elites are showing us that. Elites are showing if you do not claim your power, I will take it. And I don't know if the elite's being wrong for that. The elite is recognizing a very valuable resource in the world and saying, I will protect this resource. If you will give this to me, I will take your power and use it. You don't want your power. I'll take it. I will come fix this problem for you. That's really what it is. Guys, keep hating elites. I'm not saying don't. Yeah. I'm saying if you really want to look at your opponent has something for you. That's why they're your opponent. They literally have a giant lesson for you. They're going to show you how they can kick your ass. Why not use that? Yeah. Why not stop being so mad at that opponent? Look at it like a sensei. Look at it like you're on the mat and someone's showing you, hey, did you know you have a weakness? Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? And you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And if you're lucky, you will find an opponent who will keep doing it to you over and over and over and over again. If you're lucky, you'll find that.
Right.
Because this is where you're going to grow. And this is what the sun does. This is what the winter does. This is what
relationships do it. I think good relationships do that because they reflect the things you need to work on.
Yeah, I agree. It's so much easier to not have to stalk yourself when you live alone. When you live with someone else, you feel the power of their witness and invigorates you to witness yourself more. This is why we have relationships. It could even be, I'm not saying I want this or not. I'm just saying we were talking about what this looks like in the future. And I've speculated that in the future, I don't know if relationships are going to be as central. I didn't say people aren't. I'm saying relationships are going to be essential. I'm trying to suggest to you that if you were to meet someone on the train, that you would actually have just as deep of a connection to that person as you would your friend in a world where we have more autonomy and more sovereignty. I think our friendships really boil down more to survival and loyalty. So we find ourselves giving fealty to people that maybe didn't necessarily earn it, where we'll lie for our friend or we'll tell a fib for someone else. And that's how we show we care. Ultimately, I don't know if that's really what's best for us. I don't know if that's really helping us. It seems like that's almost more of a, we will stick together and be able to not have to improve as long as we stick together and have each other's back, which again is a herd mentality response in a good, healthy way. It's, we need to do this until we get better at it. Until we reach that next level, we're going to be looking into ways to kind of cheat the system or to, piggyback off each other. Not even that society isn't a cheat. Like we're meant to be symbiotic. So I think that we were here nurturing each other the whole time. And eventually we'll get sick of it. Eventually we'll be disgusted by how poorly we treat each other when we are living in this majoritarian fascist state. Even though we think we're getting comfort from it, we're actually just destroying each other. That's what I think is happening now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so if somebody came to you and said, let's just say, let's take the worst case scenario out of a newspaper from New Orleans. It seems like that's where it would happen, where somebody says they're completely, demonically possessed, not just oppressed. What would you say that is? What would the James True version of that be?
I don't know if someone who's truly possessed would know that they're possessed, because if you knew you're possessed, you would be aware of it, and then you'd probably exorcise the demon anyway.
Yourself.
Yeah. So I think most of the people that want to be possessed publicly like that, are the same people that, just like the Catholic priest who says, I've exorcised 1,000 people and no one else has, and I know what it's really like. He's claiming to be the purveyor of this system.
Can control evil.
Yeah, because first, if we can invent evil, and it's easy to do that because a lot of us are offloading power, so we can just call that power evil because it's power we didn't want. So boom, we just invented evil. What is evil? It's power I didn't want. That's really what it is. If enough of us put our power out, it's powerful, and if none of us want it, that's going to do some damage. That's evil. There we go. So evil is unrequited power of the self. Anyone who's telling you that
evil is unrequited power of the self.
Yeah, it's power of the self rejected. I don't want this power. So you put it out in the world. You give it to Bill Gates. You give it to Trump. You give it to whoever you want it. You give it to anyone else but you. Literally anyone else but you. Now you have no responsibility to it. You're not liable for it, right? It's like people think
somebody else is exercising it for you.
Yes.
But that means that it's a placebo.
Yes, it is, because ultimately, as you power up more, you just end up giving away more of your power. Luckily, someone's there to make that expensive for you. Luckily, greed is there to show you, hey, maybe I shouldn't give away my power. So as you start to grow up, you start to want to hold more of your power. But the more power you hold, the more you notice, fuck, I'm liable for this stuff. Like, I have to be liable. All the damage that my power does, I have to feel responsible for, because I lay up at night feeling guilty for what I said, for the power that I said. And if I wouldn't have had so much respect, or if people wouldn't have given me so much power, then when I said such an awful thing, it would not have done so much damage. What does someone do right there? Someone's going to say, I want to get off. I don't want this much power. I don't want this responsibility. Why can't I just do some drugs? Or why can't I just forget? Why can't I just be an asshole and just forget about it? And you can, but you're going to have to lose a lot of calories first. You're going to have to debase yourself enough to where you can sink to that level where you can do that. And this honestly is a constructive act. See, I'm not holding us to account that all of us have to be at our max level all the time.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. So I want to see someone have permission, just like addiction I was talking about. It's not that you're flawed because you have an addiction. It's that when you are satisfying that addiction, you're not allowing yourself to fully enjoy it yet. So you end up addicted to it because you've turned into the fetish of not having that versus having that itself. So find what you're addicted to. Find it joyful. Find it delightful, that of all the things you could be addicted to, this is it. Notice how it's sort of quirky. It gives you personality. Do that thing to the deepest ability. Give yourself full permission to do that. And then see if that helps. See if it does. I've noticed personally that it's helped. I've noticed that the more calories I have, the less clenched I am. Just clenched. And the more clenched I am, the more demonic I am, the more possessed I am, the looser I am, the more parasympathetic I am, the more fun I can have out of noticing my possessions rising.
Yeah, it is kind of fun. It's self-awareness is a very powerful thing to have. So where do responsibility and freedom fall in the demonic scale?
I don't know if freedom exists, Carmen.
Okay.
I think freedom is something that people who don't want power invented, because you sort of like, you want the power, but you don't want anything related to it. So we have the idea of it's free speech. We don't have free speech. I tried that in 2019. I found out we do not have free speech. I'm literally penalized financially for saying certain things. So we don't have free speech. We don't have freedom to wander around the country. It's true. I literally can only travel during certain periods that are considered peaceful and only with certain documents and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
All these things, all the things.
What about mental freedom? What about mental freedom?
Well, here's what I'd rather just remove the word entirely.
Okay, that's fine. I'm good with that. What are you going to do instead?
And just call it power.
Power. Okay.
That you have power. The First Amendment, thou hast power. And you're not given power, you collect power. Your bones, your skin collects power, radial, solar, mental, social, all kinds of energy every day.
Right.
You collect this power and then you either shed it or you don't. Those who shed more of it end up with what we call powerless. But it's not that they're powerless because God didn't give them power. It's that God gave everyone power, and these people shed more than everyone else does. So there's not really freedom. All there is responsibility of power.
Okay.
And who wants to listen to me after I just said that? The answer is no one. Because it's just like, well, this is not
I'm
fun.
one of the weirdos that would like to keep listening.
But this is no longer fun, because I've just told you that there is no such thing as freedom, that you can do what you want, but you're also going to pay for it. You're just living in a natural world. You're just living in a natural environment. That's all. That every single creature has this same kind of quota in the world. Everything I do is going to have some kind of cost to it. It could be a very low cost. I could not feel it all. It could be a very expensive cost. I don't know. And you're never going to know. So let's drop the idea of there being something called freedom. Let's just embrace, and let's drop the idea of equality. Let's just look, you have your life, you collect power, you either spend it or you don't. And that's literally everything. So if you are suffering from a lack of power at the end of the day, you can blame the system. You can blame someone else. These are demons. You're sending your demons out. You're putting that power to solve yourself, and you're using it to build a demon of blame. So the demon can help you say it's his fault, it's his fault, it's his fault, or her fault, or her fault, or you can say, I have all the power. So all this I'm doing to myself, this is what I want right now. I'm not wrong for wanting this. I just don't understand who I am right now. I don't understand who it is that wants this right now. And if I could pace them, this is one of the most crucial lessons, I think. If one way is to say, you suck. Another way is to pace them. Another way is to go up to them and say, hey, what are you doing? It's like, I'm drinking alcohol, or I'm eating this cookie, or to go up to them to find that person, because that's the verb. That addiction is the verb. That's who you are. You are that verb. Go to that verb. Don't castigate the verb. Run to the verb. Become the verb. Lead the verb. Tell the verb that you want that verb. You want to be the verb more than it wants to be the verb. This is how Trump does it. This is how every leader does this. They regulate. They find what you want. Then they go more. Oh, you want border security? I want a fucking wall.
That's so true. Oh my God.
Lead them. Then everyone else starts to follow you. And then you take them where you want to go, because they see that you have even more enthusiasm than they do. And they save calories from that. They draft you in that way. So draft yourself. Don't yell at yourself and say, you're stupid for being over. Go over there. Go over there and find yourself. Be that addiction for a moment. Really sit in it and go, you know what? For the next 10 minutes, we're going to freaking do this and do that. See if that helps. I think that it may not help right away. I actually think that you may need to binge, because you need to prove to yourself. This sounds so fucked up. This is why no one will ever hire me to help them. But this is also where I used to work at a treatment facility. See, it's funny how it works this way. Because if you could allow yourself to truly binge until your body fully believes that you can binge, I think only then do you unlock the power that you understand you have.
Right.
Which is that I'm sovereign of this body. If I want to have a Bacchus celebration throughout the kingdom of my Rome and just wander around getting drunk and raping whatever else I want to rape, I'm going to do that because I want it. I just need to do it. I need to follow this and see what it is, because I need to see who I am. You could be afraid that you may end up being someone who falls to the weakness of this. But see, I think that we're afraid of writing our own book. I think we're afraid of going into business for ourselves. I think we're afraid of moving or afraid of doing this. So to me, the addiction is
and those are demons.
Version. Say what?
Isn't fear a demon?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're looking at your own power vorpalized in front of you.
Right.
And I think pretty much the reason why people struggle with fear is not the actual feeling of fear itself, because fear is just showing you the compass of power. If you walk into a room and you feel fear, it literally means there is a North Pole of power in the room that is greater than yours.
I love that.
Right? That's
Say
really
it again. Say it again.
If you feel fear in a room, you are simply noticing that the North Pole of power is not inside of you. Yes. So fear is telling you where the power is. Fear is not telling you, you suck, you don't have power. Fear is telling you, hey, look over here. Look at all this power. Learn from this power. Drink from this power. Why does this posture have so much power. I want you to spend time looking at this person, wondering how come they have so many more calories than you do, and go home and try and copy that. This is, all of us are doing this all the time. We're regulating to survive. Survival is our first art. We're actually artists right now, living in flow state of survival. We have an idea for how to do it. Some of us think if I live life on my belly, I can survive because no one will shoot me. I'm on the ground now. This is a safety. It's a mechanism. It's a strategy. So it's going to take a while for enough people to get off their belly and stand up. And those are the first people that are going to get shot in the head.
Yeah. Yeah, or whatever it is. It could be a million different things, but I hear you.
Yeah. And ultimately, I think that you have to separate yourself from survival. I swear, you have to separate yourself from your own survival. If you can just separate yourself from that, realize that you can't, you're not going to be able to survive.
I call it faith, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
And so can I ask 2 more questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is, I disagree with you wholeheartedly. And I know you were joking that people absolutely use your help in detangling their misuse of their power. But what do you think is the greatest advice you could have for somebody, not an addiction, but an actual, like, stepping into what you call torque and really using their power when they're afraid?
Yeah, I think the failure that goes along with the surrender statement, you have to be willing to die, not in like a haphazard way, but just in an energetic way. You have to be wrong. You have to practice being wrong. You have to practice having a belief that you think you deserve or you think you're entitled to, and having that wrong. And just do that over and over and over and over again, and realize that every time you're wrong, you're still a good person. That see, this is what throws us off. This is where we mostly lose our calories. We sense the fear, we sense the power, we think that, okay, clearly I don't deserve this, then we just give it away. But also it pays us to get away because that strategy's worked for so long. So I think ultimately be more gentle with our own failures.
Yeah, that's so
allow
good.
ourselves to squirm. More importantly, if we catch ourselves living in the sort of the beta mode where someone else has the power, be a good beta. Like, there are times when someone else is going to have the lead and you're going to want to be that. We have this idea in culture that if you're ever that, then you're like not a good person. But I don't know how else you would learn than finding someone who does something better than you and just regulating them, just trying to pace them, right? So most of these require humility. Yeah. But all this humility really only comes with an abundance of calories. I don't think you can be humble if you don't have the calories for it. And the only way you could have the calories for it is to keep practicing these things, to keep failing at these things, to keep trying and trying and trying and realizing that didn't work either. That didn't work either. It's fine. It's fine. You're solving the equation for all of us by showing us what doesn't work too. So it's the victory thing is what's throwing us off the most. The survival thing is what's throwing us off the most. Once we start focusing on sanctity, everything will become about flow state.
It's beautiful.
And then I think everything will improve because we'll finally be allowed to follow our passion. See, right now it's like, I don't know if we trust our passions. Let's not follow them. Only a few of us are doing that.
Yeah. That's so good. So the last question is, usually people are feeling the need for 3 things, or at least what people typically are looking for. And that is a good relationship or good relationships, money, and health.
Mm-hmm.
How are demons, or our perception of demons, hindering people from getting those things?
So relationships, money health.
And health.
So money's tricky because money is plasma. It's all energy. So I don't think you can separate money from magic. I know a lot of us kind of think that those things are somehow different. I don't actually think they are. I think they're just proof of how potent you are as a magician. I don't think I'm a very potent magician because I don't have a lot of money. I didn't say I was a failure. I said that I do not think I'm a very potent magician. Let me also say, I think if I was more potent, I would have no relationships. If I
Right.
was a more potent musician, I would have no relationships at all. So the more money someone has, it it really kind of, I think, precludes them from gaining more things if your engine is based on lack. I have an engine of lack. I want to produce something that proves to the world that I'm worthy to be here. I'm not proud of this. I'm just telling you how my engine is. My engine is built on that cosmology,
Yeah,
right?
I hear what you're saying.
Prove myself to the world, right? See, I don't think that this is necessarily the best engine, but it's my engine.
Right.
I try and change it all the time. Fuck yeah, I'm always trying to change this. Either I come out of the hangar way too cocky, or I can't say a word at all because it's not going to be perfect, or whatever else it is. So ultimately, I don't know if I had more money right now, if that would really help my relationships or my success rate or my survival or anything else like that. I kind of have to put my faith in my Uber self. And the Uber self probably knows that. So I've never done cocaine, but let me just give an example. My
Okay.
Uber self probably knows if we give James a giant bag of cocaine right now, he's never going to produce another bit of work again. How would I have a conversation with my Uber self about this? Well, like, I don't think my Uber self would even want me to know this. I don't know if it would really help if it consciously told me that it's going to find a way to deny me from killing myself through too much currency. Every single person that you hear that grew up in a trailer park or had a rough childhood who wins the lottery is like dead in like a year or two. Well, like it's the worst life you could possibly imagine. And a lot of it's cannibalism. A lot of it's just like social hyenaism, but also a lot of it is your fuse has been used to living in 5 volts for a long time, and then 12 volts comes in and it
Yes.
confuses. So I'd like for everyone to consider that money is directly related to magic. It is directly related to your output. However, the amount of money that you are allowing yourself could be one of the most constructive kinds of withholding that you have. That kind of slow roll is actually how you manifest a better life, and that you know this deep down, that your neocortex is a little bit too focused on that next prize, that there's another intelligence in you that kind of understands these relationships are more important than this money.
Right.
So I'd like to think that I would be winning more only if I had finished all the lessons that are at this level. Once I did learn them all, I would slip into what I call a beyonder, someone who doesn't really live in the world that we live in. I mean, they're here, but they're in a different dimension. They're living in a different state. There are people like that, and I've met a few.
Sometimes I do that.
Yeah, sometimes I do.
Unfortunately, I do. I can catch myself in my own little bubble. It's scary
Yeah.
sometimes.
See, this is where I want to be, that beyonder state. I only notice that I'm in it when I see other people looking at me as if I am. And then I catch glimpses of, oh yeah, I guess I'm a beyonder right now. I guess I am living in this hyper flow state kind of connection spirit. It looks like charisma. It looks like someone who's just like, wow, they're just buzzing over the potential that they see that they live this way too. It's not mimicking me, but it's having the same calligraphy or posture I have, and you doing your own thing too. See, this is how we're raising each other up, which is why I think money could really hurt us if we're not socially forced, because I have to be forced. I just do. I do like people, but it's just so neurotically expensive for me to interact with people. It just is. It's just, I'm picking up a lot. I'm reading a lot. I'm thinking about it for days. Like I'm analyzing and cross-referencing all this Quincy shit. And it's just a lot of so if I wasn't around people, I would be doing that with my research or with my books or with other things like that. But most of my sources actually come from humans, not from words that were written by humans, but the actual way that someone responds in the moment to being awkward or feeling shameful. That's taught me more than any other book I've ever read.
That's so good. And then what about health?
I don't know. So I believe firmly in placebo. I've suffered an injury myself that I kind of feel kind of like I healed myself from that personally.
Yeah.
Uh,
Same.
things like that. So I do believe in that stuff, but I also want to remind the reader that I think ultimately our incessant need to survive is probably what's holding us back the most when it comes to finding that verb in that flow state.
Mm-hmm.
So I think health is, I think it's absolutely crucial. You can't do anything without health, but also I think that if we pin ourselves thinking that I have to have as much health as I can, that you end up in that addiction, that fetish, because you're trying to grasp something that actually you can't even grasp, that you really have no way of holding on to. So I look at it as an extreme blessing. I wish I noticed it more, but every now and then I'll get sick or something will be injured and I'll
Then
be,
it's noticeable.
and then I'm reminded of just how special, I have it when it comes back. So it's not really a tangible thing that I think I can bank because of just the way the universe works. I think I probably have more say so over when we check. I think all of us have more say so over when we check out than we think, even if it's like a shark attack or lightning or something.
Yeah, when we chose to go in the ocean while it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah,
a
I think
storm.
there's so much more power there. Even if it's not true, I'd rather build a cosmology where it is that way because
Mhm.
it allows me to find more power, to find more berries, to gather more energy, and ultimately just be more compassionate to everyone else.
Yeah. And it is interesting because there's kind of no end to the things you can desire or highlight, um, which is fun. So thank you for answering all of my questions. Can you please tell people where they can find you, all about your dojo, the books you've written? And then I wanted to show, I got this yesterday.
Oh, cool. Right on.
I
Yeah,
know, I'm
glad
so
you got it.
excited. A new sleep shirt.
Nice. Yeah, great. Yeah. Reptilian overlords rule the planet. Kind of a funny
Yeah,
idea
no, I
because
thought that was so good because I was like, oh my God, it's so in our own heads, right?
yeah. It makes a lot of sense that we would take that overlord and put it outside in the world, put it far away in the Zeta Reticuli, and say it's in charge of everything. It's very convenient, right?
It's a nice demon.
So I just finished rewriting Black Eye Club. It's my 7th book. Would love if people would check it out. Let me know what you think, good or bad. It's sci-fi, so it's a story. Deals with clones. It deals with hermaphrodites, believe it or not. It deals with Africa. It deals with how the mind works. Hades, seeing things that others cannot see. Things like that. I've put forth the idea that this is a muscle inside the brain that can be exercised to see more, and that a serum is developed that allows you to see things that others cannot see. It's sort of this Black Eye Club rumor that used to go around. So I encourage people to check that out. I do a live stream when I can. And we have a dojo. We start a little radio show, stuff like that. It's more just just hanging out, checking in with people, seeing how everybody's doing, and talking about the world and stuff. So
Well, I find you quite amazing, and I thank you so much for doing all that you do, and then just sharing your brain. It really amazes me because I think how many people like you have I not known about? You know what I mean? When you discover someone like you, and you go, "Jiminy Cricket!" Like so much expansion and so much learning, and it's really really fun. I will say I'm halfway through your book, and I love your writing style. So clean.
good.
So clean. And I was hooked on, I think it was page 6. I was like, whoa, this is good.
Right on. That's great to hear. It's a
Yeah.
lot of
I'll
work.
I'll give a full thing on Amazon once I finish it.
Well, thank you, Carmen. I appreciate you
Yeah.
giving it a shot. Yeah, and thank you
Yeah.
for seeing my work. It's weird kind of work I'm in. It's not necessarily for everybody, and really, really makes me feel good when someone at least gets the perspective. Not that they have to agree, but at least they see there's something to chew on there, because I really
So
do
much.
believe that this is the way forward, is something that looks like what I'm talking about. So
Yeah. And I believe that. I think you're a really good futurist. And I think that you have thought deeply about all these things. And it's really fun to get cheat codes from James True.
oh, thank you so much for including me. Seriously, I love talking to you, Carmen. I hope we do.
Thank you. And then also I was going to tell you, I've got a guy coming on. His name is Paul. He has a channel that's got almost 100,000. It's called Understanding Conspiracy, but he just started a new channel and it's called Creative Conspiracy.
Oh, okay.
Understanding Creativity. I forgot one of the two.
Yeah.
And you would be such a good guest for his show because it's kind of this combination of like you're a writer and like you have a lot of conspiracy like education and so I'm definitely going to be telling him about you tomorrow. So
thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so
yeah.
much.
Thanks everyone for coming. I'll be here not tomorrow, Sunday at 2:00 with Paul from Understanding Conspiracies.
Right on.
Bye, James True.
Thank you very